Good morning and welcome to another video by me, Mr. Drone. This morning we are here at New Brighton. It's nice and early, it's about 7:15 in the morning. I've been here about an hour now waiting for the arrival of Cunard's Queen Anne ship, it's just in the distance there. It's just making its way towards Liverpool. Now I'm going to get some shots of it. So today it is the 15th of August 2025 and today marks the 80th anniversary of VJ Day, which is the Victory in Japan Day, the end of the Second World War. 8 decades since that day today, 80 years. So there are celebrations planned in Liverpool, in and around Liverpool, so we're going to take them all in today, starting by the arrival of Cunard's Queen Anne ship, which is here to be part of those celebrations. So as a start, we will get our drone up in the air, get some shots of this ship arriving, and I'll take you through the events of today that we will get on camera. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you enjoyed the day. As we look at the Cunard Queen Anne ship coming in now, I'll just take you through the events of today. So today, Friday the 15th of August, Liverpool will unite to mark the 80th anniversary of VJ Day, the moment Japan's surrender in the Far East brought the Second World War to an end. A service of remembrance will take place at 10:30 AM at the Far East Prisoners of War Repatriation Memorial on the Pier Head, led by Reverend Canon Bill Addy of Liverpool Parish Church. In the evening, 3 of the city's landmark civic buildings, Liverpool Town Hall, St George's Hall and the Cunard Building, will be illuminated in red, white and blue. The service will be attended by civic dignitaries who will lay wreaths at the memorial alongside a speech from Professor Jeff Gill, Emeritus Professor of International Medicine at the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine and the University of Liverpool. The Far East Prisoners of War prayer will be read by Meg Parks, Honorary Research Fellow at Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine and author of Notify Alec Rattray, which recounts her father's experiences as a Far East prisoner of war. Around 4,000 former Far East prisoners of war received care and medical research support from the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine after returning home, having endured severe diseases such as malaria, cholera and amoebic dysentery in prison camps. The work became Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine's longest running research collaboration, influencing modern treatments for service personnel and pioneering early studies into the effects of PTSD. The service will conclude at around 11:30 AM, after which attendees will be invited to stay for the national 2-minute silence at noon. At 12:02 PM, vessels on the River Mersey, led by Cunard's Queen Anne, will sound their whistles in tribute. During the Second World War, Cunard's ships played a crucial role in the war effort, with Winston Churchill creating their involvement with shortening the conflict by at least a year. Both Queen Elizabeth and Queen Mary were requisitioned and converted into troop transports. Between October and December 1945, 22 ships docked in Liverpool carrying 20,000 Far East prisoners of war and over 1,000 civilians. They were formally welcomed before being transferred to transit camps in Maghull and Huyton, starting their journeys home. Southampton also served as a key repatriation port, and the city will host its own remembrance service. Liverpool's Lord Mayor, Councillor Barbara Murray, has sent a message of goodwill to her Southampton counterpart, Councillor James Bale, recognising the shared history of the two cities. It is estimated that over 50,000 British Armed Forces personnel were imprisoned by Japan, with a quarter dying, often from tropical diseases or malnutrition, in camps across Southeast Asia, including along the infamous Thai-Burma Death Railway. Around 130,000 civilians from allied nations, including 2,800 mostly British nationals, interned at the notorious Stanley Camp in Hong Kong were also held in harsh conditions. Today marks the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War and the celebrations in Liverpool. Right, okay, so there you go. That was the first section of today's video, just showing the Queen Anne arriving into Liverpool for today's events to mark the celebrations of VJ Day, the 80th anniversary of VJ Day. Next up will be the actual ceremony over in Liverpool, so we'll catch that, and then later on it will be the Queen Anne leaving. I believe it's meant to be around 8 p.m. and the lights going on the Free Graces. So hope you're enjoying the video. Stay with us for the rest of the day. Okay, so here's the next part of the video. It's just getting up to 10:30 now, and we're just getting to the Far East Prisoners of War Repatriation Memorial on the pier head. I will turn you around now. So there's going to be a service of remembrance at 10:30. That'll be led by Reverend Canon Bill Addy of Liverpool Parish Church.
Gentlemen, and welcome to the pier head here in Liverpool on the banks of the River Mersey. Today we come to remember that 80 years ago, on the 15th of August 1945, the Second World War ended with the surrender of the Japanese Imperial forces. But today we come to remember and give thanks for those who sacrificed so much during that period of the Second World War. But we also come to remember the role that Liverpool played in the repatriation of so many of the prisoners of the Japanese Empire. Because between the 7th of October and the 14th of December 1945, 22 ships carrying 20,000 men, being the majority of the surviving British military former Far East prisoners of war, FIPO, and over 1,000 former civilian internees docked here in Liverpool on the banks of this river. For many of the Liverpool returnees sailing up the Mersey to the pier head, it was bittersweet, because it was almost 4 years to the day since they had embarked at the port for overseas postings. And the men were formally welcomed to Liverpool as they arrived in their ships by the civic parties, possibly similar to that party here today, who were led by the mayors of the boroughs, who took it in turn to officiate. Among the hundreds of the FIPO who returned were survivors of the 137th Blackpool Regiment, a local territorial regiment drawn up from the Fife coast. And 10 days before that ship's berth, the women of Blackpool, who were waiting for those men to return, contacted the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine, seeking advice about how to care for their menfolk. The then director of the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine, Professor Brian McGrath, travelled to Blackpool to address 500 women, packed into the Brunswick Hall in Blackpool Central Library. And this was the start of the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine's unbroken and unique 80-year-long clinical, medical research and latterly medical history collaboration with the FIPO patients and their descendants. And of course the repatriation memorial here at the pier head, which shortly we will be laying wreaths alongside, was the idea of the researching FIPO history group. All of the 22 ships who brought those men and women back to the UK are recorded either side of a dedication to honour the memory of those who returned and those who did not. Liverpool as a port played a pivotal role in the lives of many millions of servicemen and women, both British and overseas, throughout the Second World War. But today, as I said in the opening, we come to remember and to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War. And we come conscious of our need for God's forgiveness, for the sin and desire to dominate others that leads to conflict between people and war between nations. And as we remember the many men and women, soldiers, sailors and aircrew who gave their lives restraining evil and opposing tyranny, so we come in thanksgiving for those who continue to strive for peace in the world. As I spoke in the opening of this service, I mentioned the long association over 80 years between the war in Japan in the Second World War and the work of FIPO and the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine. And I asked Professor Jeff Gill, Emeritus Professor of International Medicine at the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine at the University of Liverpool.
Lord Lieutenant, High Sheriff, Lord Mayor, Councillor Robinson, Master Captain Torhart, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. The World War II Far East story is significantly less well known than the European conflict. Perhaps because, as has been said, military history is written by winners, not losers. Japan had been involved in expansionist military campaigns in China and Manchuria throughout the 1930s, and in 1940 signed a formal alliance with Nazi Germany. And although they never fought alongside the German troops, Japan's plan was similar: to take over the whole of Southeast Asia and form what they called a Greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere. The threat to the Allies was such that large numbers of military personnel were drafted to the area during 1940. British, Dutch, Australian, Canadian, and after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, Americans. The Allies grossly underestimated the fighting prowess of the Imperial Japanese Army, who in little more than a 6-month period between late 1941 and mid-1942 fought what was later to become known as their Lightning War, essentially conquering the entire area. Their territories now extending to the Indian border in the west and within a few sea miles of Australia in the south. A staggering approximate 150,000 Allied personnel were captured. They were treated with contempt by their Japanese captors, whose culture was to fight to the death and never surrender. Over the next 3.5 years, they were used as a slave labour workforce, building railways, airfields, or labouring in mines. Later, many were transported to Japan in aptly named hell ships to support factory and dock work. As well as overwork and physical maltreatment, the POWs were exposed to multiple tropical infections, in particular dysentery and malaria, and often beriberi and cholera. They also suffered various syndromes of malnutrition due to the totally inadequate diet, and overall 25% died in captivity. Despite these conditions, there were remarkable examples we have learned of camaraderie, support and survival. Even in remote jungle camps, workshops were formed, where the various artisan skills of this largely volunteer fighting force were used to produce such items as medical equipment for the doctors and yeast extracts for vitamin treatment of malnourished POWs. In larger camps, morale was boosted by amateur drama and musicals, as well as lectures and societies, hence the name University of Chung Hai and the famous Nong Pladuk Bicycle Club, who had no bicycles, of course. Eventually, the tide of the war turned, and the Japanese finally surrendered following the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. There followed a complex operation of release from very remote camps often, as well as treating the immediate sick and giving nutritional support. The long journey home was by sea and took several weeks. Most of the UK surviving POWs, of which there were 37,500, disembarked, as we have heard, here at Liverpool, with many more at Southampton. Here in Liverpool, over 20,000 POWs and over 1,000 civilian internees arrived, carried by 22 ships docking between the 8th of October and the 10th of December 1945. It should be said that smaller numbers continued to arrive well into 1946. All were told not to speak of their experiences in captivity, and most were sent home with no debriefing or medical examination, decisions which were later regrettable. Before the end of 1945, the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine was being referred ex-POWs with medical problems related to their imprisonment. From then until the end of the 20th century, we have seen over 4,000 of these men for intensive medical assessment. Many suffered relapses of malaria or dysentery, chronic intestinal worm infections, of which 20% of those who worked on the infamous Burma Railway suffered, up to 30, 40 or even more years later, and also long-term damage to the nerves of the eyes or legs due to vitamin deficiency. But by far the commonest problem was what we now know as PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, and this affected over 1/3 of survivors. Features included anxiety, depression, relationship problems, and flashbacks and nightmares. And during these men would relive horrific memories such as beatings and torture, witnessing the death of close friends, or sometimes even having to attend to the cremation of cholera victims on open fires. It's been a great privilege for me personally to have been part of a group of tropical physicians, medical researchers, laboratory scientists and psychiatrists involved in treating and supporting these men. As their numbers have declined, we have turned our attention to keeping the story alive with historical research, conferences and meetings and outreach projects. These activities continue to this day, and as we have heard, making this Far East POW project the longest continuous collaborative activity in the history of the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine. This repatriation memorial was first unveiled in 2011 following a fundraising campaign by the researching Far East POW History Group. Further funds were later raised, more recently to replace it with a current bronze plaque in 2024. It represents part of an undoubted resurgence in interest concerning the history of Far East imprisonment, and many of us hope, and are indeed determined, to keep alive for new generations this remarkable story of survival in extreme adversity. Thank you.
Now we come to the act of remembrance. At the end of this period of remembrance, before the wreath laying and following the reveille, we will hear the Kohima epitaph, words that are written on the memorial in that war cemetery in Kohima on the borders of Burma. Alderman Roy Gladden.
Standard bearer. Carry standard. We remember before God and entrust into his keeping those who served in the Far East during the Second World War, those who died during the campaign, and those whose lives were changed by this experience. They shall not grow old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. We will remember them. when you go home, tell them of us and say, for your tomorrow, we gave our today.
Right, there you go. As we leave that that ceremony, there it was really nice, wasn't it? Really nice remembrance for them. Really necessary, in my opinion. Really nice. Some really nice speeches when the lady went up with the little boys, and one of them was clearly upset and laid a wreath. Yeah, kind of got me that, you know. Yeah, that's why it's important. That's why things like this are important, though. You know, no matter really what you believe in everything. You know, a lot of people lost their lives and struggled a lot. So yeah, it's very important that we remember them. So yeah, a 2-minute silence coming up with the sound of the ships marking the end of the 2-minute silence shortly. And then we'll get hopefully get the Queen Anne leaving us later on, and the Three Graces lighting up to mark the end of the video. Important, isn't it? Right, okay, so we're just down on the pierhead, Princess Dock, by the Isle of Man ferry terminal. You can see the Queen Anne behind us now. I'm going to get the drone in the air to take in the views. There's going to be a 2-minute silence at midday, which is literally just 5 minutes away. So we're going to observe that 2-minute silence from the air. I'll show them a 2-minute silence from the air, and then the ships marking the end of the 2-minute silence. But we should be able to hear from here. Okay, so let's get up and take it in. There you go, a fantastic 2-minute silence, observed by everybody around where I was. Everybody stopped in their tracks, really, stood still, contemplated, thought. It's nice, and it's nice to hear the ship, you know, start and finish that silence. So yeah, we'll hopefully catch the Queen Anne leaving us later on, and then they're lighting up the Three Graces, so that'll be next. That'll be next for the day, and then yeah, we'll finish off. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. Not something I'm usually doing, something like this, but as I said before, after the service, in my opinion, it's very important to remember. So yeah, hopefully you'll keep watching. Right, okay everybody, here we go. It is 10 o'clock at night on the dot, and we're about to get the last shots of the Queen Anne leaving Liverpool after celebrating VJ Day, or the 80th anniversary of VJ Day, should I say. It was supposed to leave at 8, but it had a little problem, so it was leaving at 10. But it actually makes it better because we can get the lights on the free races appearing behind the ship as it leaves. So what we'll do, we'll just pop some music on and watch this amazing ship leave Liverpool. There's quite a few drones in the air, so I've got to keep a good eye on it. Okay, let's take a look at this ship leaving, and this will end today's video. I hope, excuse me, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Should get some lovely shots here of Liverpool at night with the free races lit up red, white and blue as well. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care everybody, bye now.
Thank you.